There are many layers into all of this safety issue. Safe space, socially responsible, cultural social media site. These are very distinct and for the people, by the people, and empowering the people. I want to make a statement here that is unrelated to the contents of this video, but in closing the contents of this material, in this video, I talk about how the zoning that happens in cultural areas throughout the world. In my earlier videos that I've made, I talk about how their preservation culture centers find out the history of a culture, exhibit it, preserve it for the future. So they're very much into collecting the culture. So finding where the boundary of that culture is the boundary of the Peapod Center location. So when I talk about cultural zoning maps, that's what I'm referring to. There's a lot of reasons why, but that kind of goes into the long-term effects of what I'm hoping to gather in everything that I've created with this social media site and all the questions and the hours of testing and just kind of engagement to understand who you are. There are a lot of things that go on. I mean, I could literally talk for a couple of days, I'm sure. Just streamlining in here on this conversation. The zoning and everything is because different cultures approach different subjects differently. And as I've talked about that in other videos, the benefits of that. I'm full on in display this morning here. I just want you to know that since I recorded that last video, last night, a dimension of everything that I'm kind of doing, I'm doing something unique about that, makes my social media site that I'm going to launch generations ahead of any social media site that exists on this world today. What happened last night, I will never speak about until launch date. That will be a top secret thing that I will never speak of. The element of how it's generations above any social media site that exists. And just looking at everything in a different way. All I'm gonna say, and let me tell you, there is 100%, without a doubt, no question that everyone's gonna be like, oh, you did it! There is no question. I digress. Moving along. I told her I was going to use her video, and again, told her again that it was appearing in this video already, that I had planned on using it in years ahead, and I will. I understand the safety aspect of children, and I talk about the K through 12, some possibility of locations having daycare centers. There's going to be life coaches, therapists, psychologists, and I want some of them, most of them, to be licensed. And they're, in the example that I have in this video, is that young mother pleading and clearly must not have any social, network around her. And I thought, how can I create in a city of 200,000 people where a Peapod Center would go? How can I create in this region of maybe, 50, 100 miles? Can I find, 100 moms that can meet in groups of 3 and be counted on in certain aspects, and including, not limited to, I did some brainstorming on this, to remind, there's several communication aspects in the Good Ship that I'm creating. One of those is bringing back ICQ. For those of you that remember, in the early 90s, it was an instant messaging thing, kind of like on Messenger of Facebook, but it's going to be more like what ICQ was. And there's a discussion board, there's email, there is a sales alert if you get a sales email, like a customer exchange, there's that. And there's going to be every Peapod Center, before a Peapod Center gets there, every location in the whole world is going to be set on some sort of cultural zoning map. And the idea is to get a Peapod Center in there, so a Peapod Center is already going to have a set zone. So no matter where you're at, you're already going to be zoned in. Kind of forgot what I was talking about here. I don't remember. Zone mapping. So when you do this algorithm, and it's going to be about 5.5 hours. It's going to be broken down over the series of about 3 months from the time you sign up, from the very first time to get access, to the time that you're a full member and you can do everything that is you want to be able to do on the social media site, is going to take you 90 days. And over that course, there's going to be 3 different time periods of going through these kind of question things. That is, it's a data mining effort, but it's not anything to do with trying to sell you a good, as much as it's trying to understand you as a person, if you have a service or a good to offer, if you have an education that you can be a teacher, a life coach, I mentioned a psychologist or a therapist, and just a whole host of things. So I was sitting there kind of thinking as I was about all that. In the understanding about safety for kids, and I mentioned already, creating K through 12 education, daycares, new moms in crisis situations, military vets in crisis situations. Everybody is on a zone map, and by your answers, I can predict a need, I can predict some follow-up questions when you go through this series of questions, so that we can determine if you're a person in need, a person who can teach, a person who can teach, but do you want to? And are you a safe person to be able to fit some of these, particularly with fragile situations? There are many layers into all of this safety issue. Safe space, socially responsible, cultural social media site. These are very distinct, and for the people, by the people, and empowering the people. Again, I just want to say that again. And I did make a comment in there that I've added a couple of dozen more pieces since I have created this video. I made this video because I wanted to calm down some of my concerns of some of my social media posts, and just being concerned about what I could possibly have created, and like in a concerned way. Just not because of what I've done, but just because if you don't understand all the pieces and you're not really there, there's some series of things I'm sure that I've said that are alarming. I'm just assuming that there's been enough said. So I needed to really kind of walk through the information and kind of think about what it is I've created. And really the honest part of it is there's too much opportunity created, and what I'm creating strengthens the United States and its people in a way that I don't think anyone else could create, and it's going to ensure strength of all the people in this country, building that strength over the next 30, 40 years at a time when the infrastructure and the cost of utilities and everything is just going to skyrocket, and there's going to be a whole shift in our society. So I'm mindful of these things and sort of kind of thinking about how this all plays out. Again, I'm just going to say there's too much opportunity for what I've created in creating wealth. There's too much opportunity from the outside. There's just too much opportunity to too many people for anyone to be concerned that is trying to basically control the information. I think that in our society, we have to evolve a little bit to a more honest approach. We're more educated and understanding in human rights demanding throughout the world. We're seeing that in Iran, and I don't think that fight is going to end, and I hope that we can reach a point where we can all just be creative and show our color in our creation and our art and our artistics in general. And I've said before about when you're having to spend all of your energy for surviving, you don't have time for thriving. And thriving is where your creative atmosphere starts to come in your life. And we're not having that. And we're losing all the beautiful arts of just being alive throughout the world. Many places haven't even been able to capture that and put it into something concrete and share it in video and writings and poetry and sculpture. And I'm going to facilitate a lot of changes in a lot of different ways and just really enrich societies through the world in ways that have never even imagined. As I said, I have really, and just to kind of name a couple of things here. There's a lot of mothers, of course, that aren't connected with their family and they have young kids. And there was a girl on a TikTok the other day and I recorded her video. And actually, here's that video now.
I don't know how to deal with a toddler who doesn't talk and only screams. I'm gonna lose my fucking mind. I'm gonna lose my mind. I want to be a good mom, but I don't feel like I'm being one.
I told her I was gonna use the video. It's public, and I would be respectful. I'm gonna use it again later. I just wanted to share it with you now. But the capture there is somebody in need, and because children are involved, which is gonna kind of show you some of my mindset of creating a safe space, socially responsible, cultural social media site. We're gonna talk about the first two again here. Creating the Rolodex, creating an algorithm of approximately 5.5 hours of just broken down little tests, kind of survey training videos, how the system and what the social media is about, broken down in a whole bunch of sections. The outcome of that is me understanding what kind of person you are and what kind of things you have to offer in this human Rolodex thing that I've spoke about. Within that is going to be a few questions about, your potential to be of any candidate that would have access to children's content. If you have kids and maybe you're a homeschool and you're involved with the K through 12 homeschooling part, which is part of what I've created. It's one of the hotkeys optionals there's just going to be a list of optional buttons. So being able to screen these people is going to be important, and screen them early. And then when you become verified on the platform, that's another screening process, and that's similar to setting up a bank account. So we know who you are. And random background checks. Like I said, there's a Peapod Center in every location, 200,000 people. And even if they're not, but the point being, the chances of you being in contact with somebody who actually works for the company, is engaged in it, is pretty high. It's actually pretty high, actually. At least, and possibly multiple times. Anyhow, there are a lot of phases and parts and things that are working into this, and I'm going to build and perfect on it. And then when I'm working with a team, we'll kind of sit down and say, okay, here's what I've got. What do you think? What can we add to make this better? And of course, they're going to be the ones that are assigned these departments, because eventually I just want out of it. I just want to set it all up, get it all signed, make sure that there's, secure, no bad players. And it's basically a system that puts the money right back into the area that's making the money. And it's just like this weird self-sufficient company that doesn't have any profits. It just goes right back in. It takes profits because it's a central hub of selling products in a very, again, like there's a lot of in the Silk Road. And this. Anyhow, kind of getting off topic. I've just come to the conclusion with that video that I shared that one of the optional buttons is going to be for new moms that can tap this button and they're going to get a Rolodex of people who have kind of gone through an extra screening process, or each video maybe there's going to be something that's a unique identifier about it. You know, just a few variances in who can promote videos for this new moms tab. Obviously it's going to be experienced moms, you know, and if it's an and I'm kind of thinking of different emergency calls, like, you know, a 2-hour emergency babysitting situation, or maybe just, you know, a face-to-face camera situation. And I've talked about doing instant messaging in there. So when you're on the site and another person is on their site, there's a green light so you can instantly chat with them. It's an old ICQ thing if you were around in the 90s, and I guess the early 90s is when the ICQ was around. Anyhow, leave it at that. So I'm kind of bringing back a lot of different communication aspects of the Good Ship. And so being able to connect with them, similar to what Facebook has, you know, for that the messenger they have. But you're gonna be able to click that button and then just see each other face to face and have a conversation. And these are gonna be moms that are gonna help kind of walk the mom down. And if it needs an on-site visitation, I'm gonna have like a group of 3 people that will go, you know, for like an hour or whatever, and just kind of work through whatever this new mom's trauma is. Just like, and have, you know, in a town of 200,000 people, you know, it would be nice to have 30, 40 moms that have kind of gone through a screening process, and, you know, they're on this, like, you know, you click on this button, you're you know, pre-screened. This isn't just accessible to anybody. You have to have special permission to use this button, this new mom button. And the people who post, it's gonna be stuff that's gonna kind of help bring things together, different levels. That was born today, just that alone. And the other thing that come up, our tax structure when we hear about millionaires not paying taxes, a lot of that is because they're donating certain amounts of their wealth, and so that's a tax write-off. So then they don't have to pay taxes. Well, a lot of times these places that they make donations to are to their foundations or to a friend's foundation, who then that friend in return will donate the equal amount to theirs. And at some point, all these billionaires and millionaires are kind of trying to make that equal donation to another person's foundation, or buying a piece of art that's a tax kind of shelter thing. It's just a whole system that we're not privy to. But this is a way to reduce their taxes. All right. So I'm selling a product like Amazon, Etsy, in some aspects a little bit like a Walmart maybe. Not really, it's not gonna have that kind of listing and that kind of shopping list to pull together. We'll work on the scalability and see where this all goes. I've already thought of things like that, and I made a very bold statement months or weeks ago that I could get big enough that I could buy Walmart out. And it wasn't a joke, but it wasn't that I was trying to eliminate. Again, it's a different set of opportunity. So, I'm just another business, taking profits like anybody else. Except, I have this 5-story Peapod Center that's kind of working with the people in the area. They've working with them on the phone personally. They've probably gone out and visited with them. They're probably doing, the elite teams probably advertising their product on their weekly skit that they do. That's like a Cara Burnett show that I've mentioned many times. They have these weekly 2-hour block broadcasts that are 1-hour sections, and it's a running kind of characters themes, but they do a lot of community building events. They do a lot of teaching. They make a lot of humor about sensitive subjects and just sort of kind of building that presence of diversity and understanding and teaching and making people feel more educated about situations, touching on hot topics in a positive, funny way with your characters that you see weekly and you've built a relationship with. And product placement and pushing products like beads, linen, fabrics, and pottery. The way that I've kind of designed this system is that I want each place, these communes that I want to create, or independent creating a connection of buying fabrics exotic all around the world, and an area collectively by taking from all of their sellers and putting them in a metal transport tube that we see on a ship, and they put an equal amount of worth value, and then from another location we exchange a similar product, or in places maybe that doesn't have the kind of food. Since I'm surrounded by cornfields, clearly we have plenty of corn, so maybe there's some commodity exchangement things in there. So there's a lot of things that are engaged in this, and that's why I say there's a whole catalog of products, and that catalog of products that are going to be something that an individual can sell on the Silk Road here on the commerce page of the Good Ship. That's what that is. If you're not familiar with where, if this is the first video you're watching, don't need to over explain it, but let's just circle around. If you're selling a product through this hub, there's some forced reinvestment. I will say that at some point I'm going to be looking for someone who is an actuary person, and within that hub to hub trade and the mapping and what's available, who the people are, creating an algorithm of business opportunity of needs and surplus and wants, and creating those connections to build where it needs to be built. And within this is creation that doesn't exist. And a market focuses on several aspects of business that don't exist. I am working on several business structure things that do not exist that help the people. Because the more that I help the people, the more that everything just works. There is a lot of conversation to be had on the hub centers. A lot of conversation. I want you to think of them as warehouse docks with 10, 20, maybe weeks only 5, maybe a week where there's nobody. A truck in and out of the warehouse dock. The front of that warehouse dock is like cedar shake shingles, kind of like a round half barn attached to the warehouse. There's some crate and barrel exchange stores in there, but it's designed that it becomes like a warehouse store that may have products like there's like an open market in Texas somewhere that kind of comes to mind, but there's places all around the country I've seen as a truck driver. It's just a different kind of market to where you never know for sure what's going to be there when you go shop, because the inventory is going to change when a new shipment comes in from another location because the shipment's gone out. Kind of, like I said, I want to kind of keep, however the system works is how the system works. During the summertime, they may have farmers market out in the very vast parking lot. It's like 2 distinct parking lots. There's the warehouse, semi-truck, and then there's like the parking, sort of like a storefront, black and white sign called the hub. Gonna probably do antiques, flowers. I made a little bit of a brainstorm, hub to hub exchange, and possibly working with farmers, vegetables, a bit of a generic grocery store at times in different locations of various forms. Again, there's a lot of things here. Scalability is everything. I've laid the infrastructure, and that's where I started to begin, where I talk about this tax write-off. So I'm kind of capping a person's wealth at $1 million a year, and if they're making $1 million a year cash take home, that they have to start working down to kind of reduce their amount of wealth so we stay below that 1 million or 1,400,000, whatever that number be. I'm kind of thinking just low enough you're not eligible to get on the US stock market as sort of that goal. But there's some incremental company behavior that has to change that's going to help keep them below that limit. And some of those limits is paying a livable wage, which is, might be a minimum of $25 an hour for your simplest job, and then your more skilled jobs have to reflect that higher pay, just to keep that down so you're still within the ability to sell on the Silk Road. Another thing that's part of that, so if maybe you've met all of that, you have to reinvest in putting a hub system in your region. So basically that's a place that these metal containers would ship from hub to hub. So you kind of create a non-profit element for me, but that's where all these locations are going to kind of make sure that there's a balance, and so that you don't get, there's a lot of planning figured into this. There's a lot of security measures and just making sure there's some psychological evaluations of people before they get involved with people that have sensitive lives and have to be handled with delicate care. Literally, since I made this video and the last one, there's been probably 36 different things that have developed. It's actually been a quite busy last couple of weeks with the project that I'm working on. And I'm understanding the opportunity aspects for people who already have enough in life. We'll just leave it at that. I made a bold claim about reducing government wasteful spending. Everything that I've done, there's reinvestment parts. The hub is created out of a forced reinvestment of successful businesses that have been created by what I'm doing. There's a lot of stuff I'm not talking about here. Lot of stuff I'm not talking about. In this sort of tax structure, if you will, reinvestment in the community is always the number one front and center. That includes mental health and the communes and building relationships with governments who have set the legal authorization parameters structure for mental health facility and help. I'm going to take that and mold it into my structure. So there becomes a lot of relationships that aren't spoke here, but it's funded back into community. Again, if I can do this the right way, it's just me. If I lie and I'm not doing what I'm doing, everybody's gonna know. There's no way to off-shell the money somewhere because everybody's gonna know who I am. Everybody in the world is gonna know who I am and what I've created. That's gonna happen. And I'm gonna make it a point of it. That's always been a point of it. When you've created a structure where the money made in this area goes right back into the area in an algorithm to help build people's individual wealth. And the money that goes back in helps people build businesses. People who already own businesses help people build businesses. People who already have money are helping people build businesses. And everything builds community the way that I frameworked this. So it relieves a lot of tax burden from the government, and because the control is local, such as homeless and mental health facilities, because of the way I've structured it, it brings down just the cost, period. Cost to the government. Centralized control. Safety, because we see what's happening, because everything is in control right there in the center. The community, the Peapods, the 5-story building, the churches that manage a whole sector, the hubs, everything works together. I'm going to say one last thing. This is 32 years of my life, and I understood things early on that there were characteristic traits in all societies. It wasn't until recent years that I heard of the term epigenetics. The way that I understand epigenetics, we're all going to be burdened by our genetic structure of our ancestors and what they went through mentally. So if they developed a mental scarring because of a trauma in their life, you're going to inherit some parts of that. Strangely enough, some of that psychology is talked about in the Bible from 2,000 years ago. So they knew the consequences of it. They just didn't understand how it actually worked. Regardless, we will only continue to pile on genetic mental illness structure on humans. What I'm saying is we're all gonna get more crazy. However, with what I've created in the Rolodex of the human experience, the narrowing in of psychology, psychological understanding, and the bold claim that I'm going to be a world leader in teaching human psychology to every individual, not because I have the knowledge, but because I've created the structure to get the knowledge to teach every single human being. I can make us better people by understanding ourselves better in a world that wants to make us individualistic at a time when we need to be more community focused, or all these pieces can't work together. And genetically, we will continue to break down if we do not change. 32 years, I know what I'm talking about. Rewiring genetic structure takes generations. There's no structure in place, only a system to treat the problem, never a solution. This is sort of the bigger picture that's evolved just in the time since I have been editing this video. Not this part, because this part I added after I just finished, and then I quick made this and thought I'd add it there. So anyhow, there we go. Just hope you guys are following along, and I'm really excited about this. I do want to say that I think there's a possibility that at the end of the year, I'm gonna kind of, and I've mentioned this before, but I think I'm gonna kind of go dark and just get into writing the skits and the music and the book, and just there's a lot of just solid focus writing that I have to do, poetry and just all kinds of things. And I'm gonna be doing that here soon, in between getting this house remodeled done. I'm kind of cleaning up the house right now, getting ready to hit the remodel stage again. So all my videos are gonna probably be on my more personal YouTube video for a few months, most likely. I may throw up a little tiny video here in the future, just, you know, little short things or edited of something I've done on TikTok or something like that I may post on here. But all in all, I'm doing some gear shifting quite a few different times. I have a lot of fluctuations in my life coming just into December, and then I've kind of mentally got myself psyched into a whole nother series of just evolving practices for the next year. So always thinking ahead. Like I said, I've got the next 10 years of my life pretty much planned out, and that's a true statement, and this is just a snapshot of that. I know what I'm doing, and it changes the dynamics of everything, and the scalability works just fine. There's a lot more videos coming. Anyhow, talk to you later. Bye. And that's all I got for now.